We all know the frustration of waiting on hold for a customer service rep. Do you ever wonder if the company just wants you to go away?
The company understands that people are going to sit on hold, and they hope that they abandon the calls, because then they don't have to pay for me to go ahead and have the conversation. It's all just a numbers game. It's about how much money the company can save.
Safe to say, customer service ain't what it used to be. Hi, I'm Paul Havershrud. Welcome to The Cost of Living. Literally anything. That's what most of us would rather do instead of waiting on hold, or getting stuck in the chatbot loop of death. I'll press your one, you... Why does so much customer service feel like it's not about the customer or the service? Also today, most Canadian mortgages are 5-year terms, and a whole bunch of them, signed 5 years ago when rates were near zero, are about to get more expensive. So is there another way to do things? Up first, what do you do when you really don't know what's coming next? You wait. Uncertainty around tariffs has people doing a lot of that. But our economy can't wait forever. Glenn Brooks runs a steel fabrication shop in Calgary, Allied Metal. It's the kind of place you go if you want something built out of steel. You need it bent, rolled, cut. At this time last year, when things were rolling,
we were trying to figure out how we were going to manage the growth we were seeing. Me and my business partner for the last 6 months have been looking at other facilities, perhaps for a move. We went to Belgium last summer to look at new equipment.
And now?
In all honesty, it's all on hold until this is done.
By this, he means all the back and forth on tariffs. That equipment he was looking at is a new machine that can carve steel into almost any shape. It uses a laser. The price tag is $1.3 million, but it might cost more if it gets hit by tariffs. He doesn't know yet. But that's not even his biggest worry. What keeps him up at night is whether he'll have enough work to even need the new laser.
We're just not sure what tomorrow's going to bring. Like, I can already see just a huge decline in activity in the industry. Opportunities coming in, they are down, I would say 50% already is what we're seeing.
Normally, he gets 20 to 30 potential new jobs coming across his desk every day. This is from industries across the board: construction, oil and gas, agriculture. But yeah, like he said, that's been cut in half. Those businesses are nervous to spend right now. So Glenn's put his new steel cutting laser on ice. He's stopped hiring. Even worse, he's making lists of who he could lay off if things get really bad.
The financial conversations of late have not been great.
Because you've probably known a bunch of these guys for a long time.
No, I have employees that have worked here as long as I have, so some of them even came over from the shop I was at before. So some of these guys I've known for 3 decades.
For now, Glenn's waiting. What he wants is some certainty. What we have is a new age of uncertainty. And it's already messing with us: households, businesses, governments, and the economy. So how do we deal with it? We never know the future. But what's happening with Trump and tariffs isn't just garden variety uncertainty. It's next level, and it comes with a price.
It's a very high cost to pay if you're not sure if this kind of state of poor trade relations is going to last a week, a month, a year, a presidential term, or forever.
Scott Baker is a finance professor at Northwestern University. He also helps run something called the Economic Policy Uncertainty Index. It tracks economic and political uncertainty for countries around the world. Right now, Canada's uncertainty score is through the roof. It's almost twice what it was at the peak of the pandemic.
The kind of amount of new legislation and the amount of kind of rule via executive orders that has been coming out relating to other countries and the relationships with the U.S. has really been fairly unprecedented.
When we don't know what's coming next, typically we wait. We hold off on making decisions. We don't want to rush in, make the wrong choice. Economists actually have a term for this. They call it the option value of waiting.
The option value of waiting is basically to say, well, if I'm not sure at this point in time that this investment is going to make sense given the level of uncertainty in the economy, we might be going down a good path, in which case the investment's a great idea. We might be going down a bad path, in which case, it's not going to make sense. One thing that I can do instead of incurring all of that cost up front is just to wait for some of this uncertainty to potentially resolve.
That's just common sense, right? Wait for the fog of uncertainty to clear? But what happens when we wait?
So if you get more concerned about the future path of the economy, you're more likely to kind of hunker down and try to save a bit more money, be a little more reluctant to spend.
Maybe you don't buy that new fridge or take a new job in a different province. Businesses hold off on hiring and investing in new equipment. Uncertainty puts a chill on all of that kind of economic activity. And the longer we wait, the deeper the chill. So the economy needs us to do stuff. But how do we know what to do when we're being swamped by uncertainty?
When somebody encounters an uncertain situation, it can be paralyzing.
Sam Johnson is a psychology professor at the University of Waterloo. He researches things like how people make choices when they don't have a lot of information. The uncertainty out of the White House, even beyond tariffs, could be with us for a while. It's not like we can just sit on our hands for 4 years, wait this out. Eventually, we will need to make some decisions. Sam says the way people often do that is by waiting, collecting information, and then kind of doing our best to predict the future.
Often what people do is they try to generate some sort of story or explanation that can try to make sense of all the different uncertain events that are taking place. And then you think through that story, okay, given that this is my best guess for what's going on, here's what I think is likely to happen in the future. And then you kind of act accordingly.
One story we could tell ourselves is that Trump is purely transactional. He's using tariffs to get a better free trade deal, and things will go back to normal. But if you think he's serious about tariffs, they're here for the long haul, and our old trading relationship isn't coming back, you'll probably make different decisions. Sam says people just need to hang on to something. Any decision we make will come with risk, but waiting too long also comes with a cost.
So some people might want to be very confident in that narrative before they're willing to go forward, and they might wait until they get lots of evidence. But those people might be missing important opportunities in the meantime. So in situations where there is a lot of uncertainty, an important skill is being willing to act in the face that you can never be, of the fact that you can never be completely sure of what the future is going to hold.
If the idea of making a decision while groping around in the dark makes you feel anxious, Sam says, welcome to the club. That's pretty much where anxiety comes from.
One of the tough things about this type of uncertainty that makes it particularly paralyzing is that it's very easy to see, okay, well, if this narrative is right, that it's just a temporary negotiating tactic, I'm going to regret not expanding my business and missing all these opportunities and so on. So that's one source of anxiety, is that potential negative outcome, that opportunity cost. But then on the other hand, if that other narrative is correct, that this is actually just the new way that things are going to be for a while, then yeah, you probably would regret the action of hiring and expanding your business. So the fact that it's so easy to imagine negative outcomes on both sides of it, I think that's what makes this a particularly paralyzing situation.
The good news, Sam says, is that anxiety can also be valuable. It can protect us. It's our Jiminy Cricket sitting on our shoulder, telling us to wait and see before making a decision. The trick is figuring out when to let the anxiety go.
There's a reason we feel emotions. They shouldn't just be shut off, but they do sometimes need to be managed. So I think, like anxiety will prevent you from making a decision that you're going to regret, but it's also maybe going to prevent you from making a decision that you are not going to regret from doing anything at all.
We're still in the thick of tariff uncertainty. Trump is supposed to make a decision on April 2nd. Until then, Canada's economy, and people like Glenn Brooks at Allied Steel, will wait, even if it's not easy.
I'm not sleeping well. I'm just overall, I do not feel great right now. I am anxious. Like I said, I'm losing sleep. It's just not a great position to be in right now.
The whole country feels you, Glenn. And if it turns out the only certainty we have is more Trumpian uncertainty, well, at least we can be sure of that. And we'll take it from there.
Oh, hi. Danielle Nerman here. I'm one of the producers on the show. So here's an idea, and it's kind of big. What if the federal government invested billions of dollars into one or two small cities so that they could grow, like a lot, and take some of the housing pressure off Vancouver and Toronto?
In the U.S., if you get priced out of New York, you drive an hour and a half, you're in Philadelphia. You get priced out of Philadelphia, you drive another hour and a half, you're in DC, and then Baltimore, and then all down the line. And I was thinking in Canada, I'm in Toronto, so if you get priced out of Toronto, where do you go? Ottawa's 4 hours away and it's a government town. Montreal's 5 hours away and you got to speak French. And then other than that, you got to fly across the country.
Why Canada needs more superstar cities. I'll tell you more about that next week on The Cost of Living.
On your radio and by podcast, this is The Cost of Living. I'm Paul Haberstrood. We're carrying a lot of household debt in this country. This is a problem that's still around. It hasn't gone away. And a bunch of mortgages signed 5 years ago are about to be reset at way higher interest rates. It's being called the mortgage renewal wall. Smacking into it is going to hurt. So, is there anything we could do to avoid it?
Natalie Doiron bought a bungalow in Kitchener back in 2020 in the sleepy suburb of Forest Heights.
We've forgotten our garage door being open several times and nobody's walked in. Nothing happens here. It's just very calm, a very nice area.
It wasn't cheap, but she got a great interest rate on the mortgage, 1.89%.
We already had a really good rate before then, but I was stoked. It was nice, right?
Natalie got a fixed rate 5-year term, so renewal date is now just around the corner. She always knew it would happen, but
at that time I figured within 5 years, it's not going to be a crazy increase. I knew it was going to go higher, but I didn't expect maybe triple.
Most people, when they buy a home, most people are not professional interest rate forecasters.
Jimmy Jean is the chief economist with the financial services company Desjardins. He says a lot of Canadians are hitting what's called the mortgage renewal wall.
It's very hard to predict these things over a 5-year period.
That 5-year renewal period, it's pretty standard in Canada. Jimmy says most lenders encourage it because it's less risky for them and more profitable. But it's a different story in some other countries. And because of that,
what we are talking about right now with the mortgage renewal wall is something that you don't find elsewhere. You don't find in the United States. You don't find in most countries in Europe. And the reason for that is that they're not bound to a mortgage term that's 5 years or less, the same way we are here in Canada.
In the United States, you can lock in at a fixed rate for the length of your mortgage, 25 years, even 30. Now, Jimmy doesn't think that would work here. There's more competition in the U.S., and our banking systems are just too different. But he does think that 10-year terms should be more available to Canadians at better interest rates. He says if buyers could lock in for a decade, even if interest rates go up, their incomes would have a chance to go up too.
People get promoted and that kind of stuff. And, that would help their income rise and put them in a much better position to handle those mortgage rate increases if they so happen, compared to when you're talking about a 5-year situation.
Then again, interest rates don't just go one way.
If you borrow at the highest level here and then they go down, well, you're going to be pretty happy in 5 years.
Scott Terrio's an insolvency expert in Toronto.
Like nobody was complaining when they went to zero, right?
If you lock in for a decade, you could miss out on savings. But Jimmy Jean says locking in for 10 years means homeowners might get something even better: predictability.
That difference is worth it in terms of the peace of mind it provides them, not having to worry about and being able to plan.
Nathalie Doiron is planning to pay thousands more in interest this year, and she'll find a way to make it work. But if she'd had the option...
I would like to think that I would have taken a 10-year lock-in if I could have had like a decent rate. Maybe not necessarily the absolute lowest of what they're offering, but if there was at least something reasonable for 10 years, I probably would have taken it.
For The Cost of Living, I'm Jennifer Keane.
How do you feel when you hear the words customer service? Are you filled with the warm, buzzy glow of knowing that someone cares about you and really just wants to help solve your problem? Blair Sanderson, what about you?
Yeah, I have lots of thoughts about this, but hang on a second. I'm just going to put you on hold.
Blair, why you got to do me like that?
I'm sorry, I just had to do it. We're going to have a conversation about customer service. I'm trying to put you in the mood.
Well, I'm in the mood. You know what I'm in the mood for? To actually talk to a real person on the phone, which feels like it's pretty tough to make happen.
Yeah, this is something that a lot of people want, including a guy named Marcel Strigberger. He's a retiree who lives in Thornhill, Ontario. Not long ago, he noticed a $1,000 charge on his credit card. And it came from a hotel in Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, somewhere that he's never been. And so Marcel called up the bank's customer service line and didn't go well.
It's the worst. You're there, you're all upset. Nobody picks up the line. You listen to that agonizing music. Your call's important to us. We understand how you feel. And they're getting more calls than usual. It's frustrating.
If every company is always getting more calls than usual, isn't that just the usual?
Yeah, that's the norm. In the end, for Marcel, it took 3 hours to reach the right person.
And at that point, how was he feeling?
Frustrated. But Marcel knows how to channel his anger. He actually wrote a piece for the Globe and Mail about the insufferable state of customer service. He said if Alexander Graham Bell knew that customers would be treated like this, he would have never invented the telephone.
Went straight to the source. Went straight to Alexander Graham Bell. He's just like, no phones. Not worth it.
Yeah, and he's not the only person feeling this way. If you go online and look at the comments about customer service, people are mad. They're mad about the time on hold, mad about the endless phone maze you have to go through. Press 1 for this, 2 for that. Kevin Lippis used to be on the other end of these calls. He was a call center worker for American companies like Time Warner and Wells Fargo.
I would get screamed at for their wait times. I would get screamed at for how complicated the voice system was. I was taking on average 30 to 40 calls a day in some instances, and I'd say probably a good 2/3 of them were just getting screamed at and belittled.
Not a super fun way to spend an 8-hour shift.
Kevin says he felt like a punching bag. And it must be getting pretty bad out there because we are hearing more messages like this.
To create a positive experience for everyone, we kindly ask that conversations remain respectful. Inappropriate language will not be tolerated and may lead to the discontinuation of your call.
So they're trying to head off the anger at the pass.
That's right. They're basically just saying, hey, please don't be a jerk on the phone. That message, by the way, was from Rogers. It's not the only company doing this. Canada Post, Service Ontario, BC Hydro, and the Canada Revenue Agency, they're all doing it now.
Does this work?
Maybe, but maybe it also has the opposite effect. Jessica Cryer is with Experience Advisors. It's a Toronto firm that helps companies with their call center systems.
Reminding customers at the beginning of every call, adding time to the call itself to remind them, I think just typically triggers and angers customers. So I appreciate the intent. Do I think it's the most effective way to do it? I don't.
Yeah, at the start of a call, if you're asking someone not to be angry, you may have already lost.
Yeah, and I like Jessica's point, too. If you're waiting, having time now spent telling me not to get mad is just killing more time that I could be using to talk to someone in customer service. And really, all of this does point to one thing. Customer service is getting more aggravating. Years ago, sure, you were put on hold and maybe you didn't love it, but you could put your feet up, and wait or do something else while you wait. But now you really have to stay engaged with the call. You have these robot voices, they're asking you all these questions. What's your card number? What's your account number? Is this a new or existing claim? And on it goes.
Yeah, they really put you to work, right? You're in it the whole time.
And you're going through this whole rigmarole because companies, they want to get as much information from you as possible before you talk to a real person. That way workers aren't wasting their time getting those details themselves. Jessica says companies are always asking themselves these two basic questions.
How are we using technology to reduce the headcount or reduce the number of people that we need to employ within the contact center? Number one. And then number two, how are we using technology so that we don't have people calling in for basic questions or inquiries so that our people that we employ can handle the more complicated issues live over the phone?
Sure, they want real people to handle the complicated issues, but what we want is for someone to handle whatever issue we have. We just want to talk to a real person right away.
Yeah, but the opposite is really what's happening, and some of it is by design. Here's Kevin Lippis again, the guy who used to work at call centers.
The company understands that people are going to sit on hold, and they hope that they abandon the calls because then they don't have to pay for me to go ahead and have the conversation. It's all just a numbers game. It's about how much money the company can save.
So they don't want to talk to us. I knew it.
And they're often pretty explicit about it, too. When you're on hold, you keep hearing these messages, go to our website, log in. And it's really part of a bigger trend, right? This general movement to get customers doing more things for themselves.
Yeah, this is like the do-it-yourself economy. We've actually done stories on this. It's when a company downloads the work that you used to do, but they put it on us now.
Yeah, that's right. So, bag your own groceries or check your bag at the airport. And I'm sure you've heard as well that not everybody loves this DIY approach. But call center consultant Jessica Cryer says attitudes are shifting. And really, it's generational. Older people might be resistant to this change, but young people, they're adapting. Hello.
Hello.
How old are you folks?
We're 21. 22.
20.
Okay. Do you guys pick up a phone if you're having a problem with your bank or, insurance or you're trying to get a driver's license? What do you do?
Usually just, send in a message to their chat bots. Last resort is typically calling because it's scary.
Scary?
Scary. I don't know. Something about sitting on hold too for extended periods of time. I feel like when I'm calling in, I got to set aside many hours of my day because you never know if it's going to be 30 minutes or like 5 hours till you get through.
So you guys all mostly avoid the phone?
Yeah.
The youth, they don't talk on the phone.
They grew up texting. And it's something the rest of us might as well get used to because more and more companies aren't even listing phone numbers at all. Shopify, big giant Canadian Shopify, for example, their website has no phone number. Just a bunch of online self-help tools.
Well, that's not potentially frustrating at all now, is it?
Now listen, don't take it out on me. Consider this, Paul, your anti-harassment warning. I will discontinue this conversation if you get out of line.
Blair Sanderson, I would never. And you, look at your customer service. Look at what you've just done. It's been fantastic.
Oh, well, in that case, it's been a pleasure to help you, Paul.
That's all for the show. The Cost of Living is based in Calgary. The show is produced by Danielle Nerman, Blair Sanderson, and Jennifer Keene, with help from Jeff Kynock. I'm Paul Haberstrood. And know this, we value our listeners. Your time is important to us. Thanks for holding.